Hey, 456, this is Mr. Brian, and excited to be with you this morning. Miss you guys so much. I get to see you through the week and on Sundays, and at least we get to do this virtually. And so if I've never met you before, I can't wait to meet you. I hope you get a chance to come to Southern Hills and see what we have going on there. But this morning, I'm going to come to you and ask you a question that I've had to think about so many times in my own life about sometimes when you think you understand something and then you get going and all of a sudden you realize you are absolutely clueless. And so it might be maybe you learned a new game, a new board game, maybe you're out in the field playing a game, soccer, baseball, and then you think you got all the rules down, and then all of a sudden you start playing and you have no idea what's happening. Or maybe it's that math teacher and they explain this problem perfectly. You think you've got this math problem, you get to the end, you think you have it right, and then you go to look at the right answer and you are way off. And so there's a lot of times when this life, when we think we understand something, but when it comes down to it, we don't understand. We don't have a clue. And this morning we're going to look at a couple people in the Bible where that exact thing happened to. They thought they had a clear understanding of something, but when it came down to it, they had no idea. And so that's where we're headed. We are going to kind of do a quick recap. 2 weeks ago was Easter, and we had a chance to celebrate Easter. And then, so in the Bible, what that looks like is after Easter, we knew that Jesus, actually before Easter, we knew Jesus was in the tomb, but then the tomb was empty. And at this particular time, people didn't know what to think. They didn't know why the tomb was empty. There was rumblings of women going to the gravesite and angels telling them that the tomb was empty. There were also people that thought maybe Jesus' body was stolen from the tomb. But that's right where we pick up, and it was on that same day, and I'm going to be reading out of Luke 24 today. So if you're following along in your Bible, you have your Bible with you, then that's where we're at, Luke 24. And verse 13 is where it starts, and it reads like this. It says, that same day, two of Jesus's followers were going through a village called Emmaus. It was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were walking with each other and talking about everything that had happened. And so these two fellas or people that were walking were not the original 12 disciples, but they were disciples of Jesus. I should say not the apostles, but they were disciples of Jesus. And they were walking away from Jerusalem. And then in verse 15 and 16, it tells us, as they talked about those things, meaning the things about trying to understand Jesus in this empty tomb, Jesus himself came up and walked along them, but God kept him from recognizing him. And so we don't know. I mean, was Jesus in there with, like the mustache and fake glasses? Did he have a mask on? Obviously not. I'm kidding. But we do know that God disguised Jesus from these two disciples that were walking towards Emmaus. And so, pretty crazy moment. If you think about this, in Luke 24 and then in 17 and 18, it reads, Jesus asked them, what are you talking about as you walk along this way? They stood still and their faces were sad. One of them named Cleopas. One of them's name was Cleopas. He said to Jesus, are you the only person visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know? Don't you know about the things that have happened here in the last few days? Remember, not knowing he was talking to Jesus, he couldn't believe that someone didn't know what was happening. And so they were shocked about this. So they began to told him in Luke 24:19, Jesus says, what things? Jesus asked. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet. He was powerful in what he said and did in the sight of God and his people. The chief priests and our rulers handed Jesus over to be sentenced to death. They nailed him on a cross. And here is where these disciples begin to show their sadness. They lost hope at that particular time. Remember, Jesus was considered a Messiah. Many people saw Jesus in the Jewish faith as this, a warrior king who would destroy his enemies. And so if you think about in the Old Testament, that's what we know about Moses. That's what we know about King David. That's what we know about these people in the Jewish old kings in the Old Testament. These kings destroyed enemies, and God gave them the power to do that. And so that's what they were expecting. That's what they understood a king to be at that time.